WMMS.com. Thanks again to Gorf Zoltana for helping out video-wise. If you listen on the iHeartRadio app, leave us messages there. Mike DeWine has announced that he's getting ready to sign a bill that will permit school districts to arm teachers as soon as this fall. Who says that the Florida of the North isn't doing anything?
Don't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Yeah. It'll be optional for school districts. My prediction is that 0% of them will want to do that. But there it is. Congratulations. You made it happen. Teachers that already overworked and underpaid, let's make them have to shoot people, too. Yeah, let's make them soldiers. Let's deputize them in the schools. Why not? I was listening to this. Earlier today, they had the mayor of Tulsa giving a press conference, and he was obviously shaken, and there was a woman that was speaking too, and I don't know who she was, but she sounded pretty upset, so I don't know if she was a relative. I don't know if she was a nurse. I was kind of inferring that she was an employee at the hospital where that shooting went down. She was suggesting that everyone pray. And at this point, the whole making fun of thoughts and prayers thing is pretty cliche. It's very silly, fundamentally. But she was saying, this is the prayer that I say, and this is what everybody should say. And I mean, at some point, don't you conclude that God's not concerned? I mean, if you're putting your faith in thoughts and prayers, and, you know, Jesus, you can take what's wrong and make it right. That was one of the lines in her prayer. Clearly, that's not what's happening. So even if you're one of the faithful, even if you're a member of the flock, you got to look around and go, well, they're not doing anything. If you're praying to God to change things, you believe that God could, with the flick of a wrist, that's not what's happening. And there's always copycat after any like high-profile school shooting. There's always copycat situations, too. I was talking to Mike in Parma earlier, and they had Parma High School was closed. Parma Senior High School was closed because they got a school shooting threat. And I think it was determined to be a hoax, but that there was word getting around that a student was planning a school shooting at Parma Senior High School. And so ultimately all that happened was the kids got the day off. But like they got some 16-year-old kid in Berkeley, California, who was, they got him before he was going to put bombs all over the high school or whatever. Fremont, California, they had some kid who was telling people he was going to shoot up his school. So these things always happen after. The Tulsa situation was a targeted shooting. The guy was mad at his doctor because his back hurt. And so he went and shot his doctor and another doctor, and he killed a couple other people, I think a receptionist.
Jesus.
He bought an AR-15 3 hours before the shooting, and he had a couple of handguns with him, too. They recovered 37 shell casings at the scene at this hospital. So the guy, I guess, had an appointment with his doctor. He'd had some back surgery or something, and he had an appointment with his doctor the day before, and was mad that his back hurt. This is what we've come to, where firearms solve every problem you've got. What, did this guy have some kind of racial animus? No, his back hurt. That's why he went in there.
Did his doctor say, oh, your fingers hurt? Well, now your back is going to hurt because you just pulled landscaping duty. Happy Gilmore. It's great.
Happy
great
movie. Gilmore. Yeah, there you go.
If an event happens, a tragic event happens at a hospital, do they use that hospital to rehabilitate the people?
They're already there,
What do
probably.
you mean?
Well, I'm just saying, like...
They just take them to a different wing?
Right, or they take him to a different hospital. Could you imagine putting him in an ambulance?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what if a crime scene is at the police station? What do? Are they going to go into another room and like, oh, okay, let's go outside and examine?
I mean, they do commit a lot of crimes.
Wait, what do you mean? Does the hospital where those people were killed tend to them?
Yeah.
I would imagine they did.
Yeah, but I'm saying, do they have to come out and like bring them out on a stretcher, and then like we're gonna go to the other side where it's safe?
Well, again, I don't know where the because the guy ended up shooting himself. So I think by the time they got there, it wasn't. I don't know that it was an active shooter situation, but I think he killed a receptionist. He killed his doctor. He killed a female doctor. And one other person, I think.
We need
This
more
was-
physicians.
An episode of Grey's Anatomy a few years ago. I think it might have been maybe not the series finale, but a guy, I could be remembering it wrong. I feel like a guy's like wife had cancer or something, and the doctors couldn't save her, and he went in and shot up the hospital because he was upset about his wife. And that was like, at the time, like, unfathomable, I can't believe this would happen type of thing. And then a few years later, here it is, you know?
I mean, I guess I thought that hospitals had some kind of metal detection or...
No.
They have security.
But they don't.
But it's like an old guy sitting at a podium.
And you can just walk
telling
right
you to put a
past him.
mask on.
No, that's not true, because if they need to restrain people, like combative patients, they need a security team. There are big dudes.
Where? What hospitals are you going
But that's
to?
different than stopping a guy who's got an AR
That
and
is different,
handguns.
but they have hands where people they have walkie-talkies, and you could obviously call the police. So it's not like a top flight security team, but they have a bunch of people that can restrain someone on a moment's notice, because there have been times when you're transporting people, they don't want to go. If you are someone who has a
but
disease,
someone
and
coming in with
you're spraying infection around people or bacteria around people.
I think someone coming in and needing to be restrained or sedated doesn't call for a security team. They have like 2 nurses hold them down and give them a shot so that when they're being transferred, they don't act up.
Yeah, nurses don't F around.
No.
It's not their first
They'll
rodeo.
knock you out.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I mean, at least the experience I have in hospitals, you can kind of just walk wherever. And if someone catches you, they're like, hey, get out of here.
Well,
You know?
a lot of the places are all sealed up. You can't get into a certain wing without
Well, yeah,
a
like,
badge or pressing a button.
You can get to a lot of places, though.
That's what I'm saying, is that
The floors
until
where they
you're
want you to
caught,
go.
And you can also just shoot your way in.
Okay.
Alan, I'm willing to bet that the dude wanted pain meds from his doctor and then went nuts.
Oh, probably.
Well, that's what it was. He said, my back still hurts. But again, this was premeditated. You know, he walked back in a day after or whatever. I saw somebody wrote an article. It said, this was before the hospital shooting. This was after Uvalde. And the way they put it was, America's sickness is guns. And I thought that was a very interesting way to put it. The U.S. is sick with guns.
But there's so many people on Facebook that said that guns aren't the problem.
Well, there is
What?
this blame anything but guns for things that only guns can do campaign that's out there. But, more people were shot and killed over Memorial Day weekend here than are killed by guns in Japan and the UK combined in a year. So obviously, it's not video games. It's not lack of prayer. Stop.
What if it was
It's
lack of prayer?
always,
What if it's my
I don't know why
prayers that are-
I don't know why we're all like lying to each other about it. I don't understand that.
I posted a thing about a guy from Canada tweeted, and he was like, oh, we've only had 20. I mean, it's gone around. Everybody's seen it, And he's like, the problem is the guns. We've had, 20 major school shootings in the last decade or whatever. And
We
you guys
listen to the
have had
same
this
music
many.
as you. We have the
Yes,
same.
everything's the same. And it was in
Everything's the same,
Canada.
yeah.
And
But
one
you
of
have to go
my
through a lot more to get a
And
gun
they're
up
getting
there.
ready to crack down on handguns because they're like, look what's happening in the United States. We got to prepare for blah, blah, blah. And of course, everybody down here in bad faith is screaming like, this is what happens when communism takes over. And they're like, guys, every other developed country, if they had an issue like this, they'd go, well, we got to figure this out.
Well, it's every person who's comes out of the woodwork where a guy I used to work with was like, well, that's not a fair comparison because we have X amount, like 10 times the amount of people that they have in Canada or whatever the number is. So that's really not a fair comparison. And then I just respond, I'm like, guns should be harder to get. Like, that's the whole point is
Yeah.
what we're trying to get at here. And like a country, like you're saying, Japan
As it says in the
and the UK.
Constitution, the right to bear arms within a well-regulated militia.
Well, but
And
any,
nobody ever brings up that
But any right. Well, they always bring that up. But the thing
but
is
they-
how it's been interpreted. I mean, there was a Supreme Court justice in the late '60s who was like, the interpretation of this in the modern day is the biggest fraud ever perpetrated on the American people. I mean, any rights you have costs, and when those costs get too high for society, then they have to be examined. You go back 100 years. I remember studying this in constitutional law classes in college. In the late 1800s, the Supreme Court was like, look, Mormons think that polygamy is something that they should do, right? It's a genuine article of their faith or whatever. But the cost to society is too great. This is not something that we should have as part of society. And it's the same thing that you would have to apply to any constitutional amendment. No reasonable person would say that the right to assault rifles and large ammo mags outweighs the right to public safety. So if the price has become too high for everyone else, why do we need to be held hostage by it? They're talking about right after the school shooting in Texas. I was clicking around, and it might have been Ted Cruz or somebody, I don't know. And they're coming up with just these fakakta ideas for, we got to have man traps. One guy said, we need man traps. And he explained it as like, schools need a series of interlocking doors that are triggered by a tripwire, or kids should have ballistic blankets.
Get me Kevin McAllister.
You know, it's like,
we need booby traps, and we need them now. I've always been a big fan of the moats. I say bring back moats.
This woman who was, I don't know if she was a senator from Wyoming or I don't know where, this woman goes into, you know, well, instead of parents buying their kids all these tools and toys and games, they should invest in classrooms to make them safer. So the idea is, yeah, tell your kids they can't have any more toys because guns are more important than, you know, how is that a solution?
It's some of the leaps that they take are just ridiculous.
It's wild.
Now let's get back to moats. They'd have some sort of flesh-eating animal in there, and it'd also have a high enough bank that you wouldn't be able to get out of the moat if you fell into it.
Fill it with liquid monkeypox.
There you go.
Listen, Poundcake's a guy who wants to dig trenches. You know, hire him to dig your trench.
But his trench is a distraction.
Dude, by the way, I was pulling up weeds the other day, and then I like pulled out what I could and then got the shovel to get the roots out. I swear to God, I almost called you because we were off air. And I was about to say, get your ass over here and dig this trench because you have no idea how hard this is.
3 Hyundais wide, 3 Hyundais deep, and 3 Hyundais long.
My back is just screaming. I'm sweating. My face is red. And I'm like,
joke's on you.
He thinks he can dig a trench. I can't even dig out a root.
Joke's on you. Had you called me, I probably would have come over because I'm like, you know what? I could probably get out, use some exercise. I'll help Murr.
I'll dig a trench.
I keep thinking about the movie Holes, where it's like you dig a hole as it's the length of the shovel long and then length of the shovel wide. And I'm like, I could do that all day, every day in the desert.
No.
You and Shia LaBeouf.
He really can never get the word deep.
What did he say?
Length of the shovel long.
How length long is that hole there? Hey, Rat.
Hey, little radio buddies. How is everyone doing?
What's going on, man?
Man, my mom had a urinary tract infection a couple years ago. She's old. She's an old person's home, you know, and when you get that, you know, you go crazy. So I had to rush over to Avon Cleveland Clinic because that's by her old person's home over there. And I had my firearm on me, on my hip, as always, normally. And I ran right into that hospital, right through the metal detector, set the metal detector off, and I go, oh, shoot. I think I walked in here, and my pistol's on me, and the security guy's right there, and he says, oh, that's cool. Here, come in my office. I walk in his office, and he goes, here, put it in the safe. I go, oh. All right, that's kind of cool. Thank you for not thinking I'm a threat. It's my fault for coming in here. But yeah, Cleveland clinics have metal detectors and stuff, but I thought that was like very strange but nice that they were like, you know, they didn't check my ID or anything. They just said, all right, here, put your gun in the safe. Very strange. Very strange.
I mean, I guess better. At that point, they probably don't have much choice. I mean, they don't want you walking around with it.
Right, and maybe they don't want you walking about out the door in the parking lot with it either, you know, because they don't know you.
Well, this is the thing, Rat. You're white. Had you been a black guy and you'd done that, you'd be arrested.
That's pretty true, and I am pretty black for being a white guy, normally. But yeah, you're right, bro. People get treated unfairly, and I think that kids have nothing to look up to these days except superstars and things that they really can't ever grasp. Non-reality. They want to be millionaires and they want to be the pop stars, and there's just such a race in between the kids to be better and you know, just a race to be cool. And these kids are just, they realize they can't have their dreams because they dreamt too big, and then they
But none of this is about kids trying to be cool. I mean, there's a lot of these. Thank you, Rat. I'm going to let you go. Thank you, pal. I appreciate the call. You know, I was reading this. There's a lot of these articles now. These articles that have to be written. How to talk to your kids about school shootings. That has to be an article now because you have to do it if you're a parent. So you have people in this country working really, really hard to make sure that their kids don't ever have to learn about gay people, don't ever have to learn about slavery. But school shootings, it's just part of life. That you'll have to try and explain to them. You have to. Part of life. Other stuff, nope. Hey, I have a kid in my class who's gay. What? We don't say that word around here. Don't read anything about slavery or the history of the country. What about school shootings? Oh, you've got to have a conversation about that. You have to explain school shootings to your kid. Because no way around it. You know, people like to point out, too, that all these states slash mental health funding. They go, it's mental health, mental health. You'd think they'd be pouring money into mental health funding. Nope, they slash it. Because their thought is, well, if you just God a little bit harder, everything will work itself out. You're just not praying hard enough. You don't need mental health counseling. Oh, I thought you said this is a mental health problem. Oh, it is. But we're not going to pay for it. That's why it's really hard to be anti-choice and pro-gun. Because if you look at statistics, the most common across the board, the most common warning sign for a mass shooting is domestic violence. Violence against women. Go online and look at these guys that talk about this stuff. Misogyny is a kind of a thread through all this.
What? That's crazy.
So,
Also, my plan, pretty good idea.
Moats.
Well, not moats. 5 dudes have to sign off on you buying a gun.
5 women.
Or 5
5
women.
women.
5 women, not 5
You're
dudes.
going to get 5 dudes to sign
not
off
5
on
dudes. 5 women, yeah.
buying a gun. Hey, Larry.
Hey, Alan, how you doing?
What's going on, Larry?
Not much. A big fan, been listening since day one.
Thank you.
This gun thing is crazy. I just wanted to kick in the Fairview Hospital where I go. I can't get in without a metal detector, and at least that hospital seems safe to get into. But what gets me is I don't know how 1 or 2 people in the Senate can stop the government from having any kind of gun control. It irks me to no end.
Well, somebody needs to figure it out. This notion that there's nothing we can do. Nobody's got any solutions. This is what, in the state of Texas, which obviously is getting a lot of attention because of the shooting in Uvalde. People have also pointed out that there is a law about how many dildos you can own. This was some of Ted Cruz's earlier work. There's no law about how many guns you can own. Texas has a law on the books about how many dildos you can own. It's illegal in Texas for you to have more than 6 dildos. When Ted Cruz, before he was a senator, he was the Solicitor General for the state of Texas. And he wrote that legislation.
Do they have to be registered dildos?
That's what I mean. How can they tell? Like a point system?
The law against obscene devices in Texas.
They have all their priorities straight.
It's part of the penal code. Ah, boy. I've got to take a break. I'll have those Monster Jam. You talk about a Monster Jam. Monster Jam tickets, 4th of July weekend. It's going to happen at First Energy Stadium. You like it loud, you like it dirty, you like it noisy. Monster Jam is a lot of fun. So a couple of tickets on the way back. 35192 on a text for something else, and we'll be back.
This is the Alan Cox Show. Everywhere on our free